It is Wednesday, July 9th, 2 days away from the official release of Superman, and I am behind on recording. I forgot how much time a 9 to 5 job took away from your life. But don't worry, I've got a gyro sandwich right here. I got some onion rings off to the side. Let's talk about this last part. I call this era the fall of the DCEU because I call this era the fall of the DCEU because it was DC or Warner Brothers more like. It was their last time. I call this era the fall of the DCEU because it was Warner Brothers' last chance at saving this universe. While Walter Hamada did some great things, like allowing the Batman to release, allowing Joker to release, he also did some terrible things. For example, he caved in to the fans and allowed the Snyder Cut to release. And that's a movie that I like, but I mean, that was one moment that he probably shouldn't have let slide because it allowed a cult to continue to egg on that this universe continue 5 years later. On top of that, following the Snyder Cut was a slew of really mid-tier movies that really just signaled the fall of the DCU. On top of that, following the Snyder Cut were a slew of really mid-tier movies that cost Warner Brothers money. And a post-credit scene in Black Adam brought back the hope of these Snyder cultists and then ripped it away. And to end off Hamada's reign, he allows Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson to bring back a familiar face that the cultists were in love with, only for Hamada to leave DC and leave Warner Brothers as a whole, and Zaslav step in, allow James Gunn to take creative control, and Henry Cavill just gets released again. It's a fucking clusterfuck. And then a series of really mid-tier movies follow that really create a really sore. And then a slew of mid-tier movies follow, creating a really bittersweet ending to the DCEU. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's go into the movies. This is, without a doubt, my favorite movie that Zack Snyder made under his, I guess you want to call it a DCEU regime. Despite it being a 4-hour movie, I've seen this movie a lot of times. And it's really weird because, I cut really hard into Batman v Superman, and I didn't think Man of Steel was necessarily special at all. But I don't know. For some reason, this movie just hits different to me. But I'm not going to glaze it like a bunch of Snyder heads will. I'm not going to just call it a perfection, a masterpiece or anything, because it's none of that. I just really like it personally. But I am going to compare it directly to the Joss Whedon cut, simply because it's the same movie with a different style, different vision, everything like that. Immediately, you can tell that the production is much, much, much better in this movie, and there's a lot more of a vision that someone actually had. For starters, the opening scene is great. It shows the actual impact of Superman's death on the world, more than just a compilation of random citizens while that weird-ass song plays over everything. This opening scene shows that the Mother Box is awakened due to Superman's death. It shows how Martha Kent feels and how Lois Lane is dealing with Superman's death. And the song's actually dramatic, like really dramatic. And like I've shit on Lois Lane a lot. All right, she's a really poorly written character in these movies. All right, she's just dumb as fuck. But in this movie, I at least liked the scene where she would get coffee, give one to the police officer, and then look at the mural for Superman. I really liked that scene. And at the same time, we see Bruce going out and looking for metahumans to form the Justice League, which I still do not think there was a good enough reason for him to do that. Maybe besides Doomsday existing and seeing that we need some type of team to deal with these threats. But all he says is he senses an attack coming, which why would you sense that? There was no indication that you had any knowledge of an attack coming, and yet you just sensed an attack coming. I still think that just was an easy cop-out to allow him to start looking for Justice League members. We've got the classic, the woman, I guess, like screaming / singing whenever Wonder Woman shows up, which I mean, it was cool the first few times, but as the movie goes on, you're just sitting there and they're like, all right, why is she still screaming? It's definitely the best when you first see her, and then after that, it just feels unnecessary. Steppenwolf doesn't look like a single dad in this one, so that's a positive. He looks like he's ripped straight out of some anime, honestly, and his voice is not annoying at all, so I can actually bear to listen to him talk. I also love how brutal he is. He doesn't really hold back any of his punches, and every single hit that he takes on someone that connects looks like it hurts. And I mean, he, unlike a lot of characters in any type of comic book movie media, when he attacks with his weapon, it does some actual damage. Like, one moment that sticks in my mind always is how when he's trying to get the mother box from Atlantis, he literally slices like 2 Atlanteans in half to do it. And it's awesome. And I'm pretty sure he also did it to like a couple of Amazonians as well. One issue I have with the villains of this movie, Darkseid. So he gets his ass kicked on Earth. Bro gets dragged back into his ship and somehow forgets the planet where he also... So he loses on Earth. The same place he lost the mother boxes, and the same place that he found the anti-life equation. And you just forget what planet that is? Like, dog, if I lost my first battle ever and my mother boxes and found the anti-life equation, I would be writing down the coordinates to this planet so that when I recover, I'm coming back and laying hell down. Or I'm at least telling my minions to go write that shit down while I recover. Like, I'm not forgetting what planet that happened on. Like, whether or not Steppenwolf goes to Earth, he should have Earth on his list, ready to attack that planet. He should know where the anti-life equation is. Maybe bro was just scared, you know, and when Steppenwolf said he was chilling, you know, getting all the mother boxes, and he was like, yo, anti-life is here, and Darkseid was like, shit, Steppenwolf is doing well on Earth? I might have to come there now, you know? Darkseid might have just been scared, and when he learned that Steppenwolf was chilling, and, you know, Steppenwolf was just so below him, he was like, shit, I might show up now. The Flash saving Iris is still one of my favorite scenes in all of the DCEU. Even though there are some continuity issues with that scene. Like, why did only his shoes burn up when he went to save her? Technically, all of his clothes should have burned up, but I don't really care. I think it's really only because of the song that plays during it. I think the woman who sings it is just, she's got a great voice, and I think she really ties that scene together. And obviously you've got the Flash going back in time to save the world at the end. But I think that scene is cool and all, but I really like the scene where the Flash pushes the sword back towards Wonder Woman. And I know that scene was also in the Whedon cut, but I think that scene doesn't really do it justice as much as it is done justice in the Snyder cut. Like, it's just so much better in this version because there's actual heroic music playing, and the Flash, when falling, doesn't go face first into Wonder Woman's tits. So if you just ignore the fact that Ezra Miller is a terrible, terrible, terrible human being, the Flash has some cool moments in this. Cyborg also gets justice in this movie, and it's really awesome. There's a part where his football team is celebrating winning, I think the conference championship, and everyone's surrounding him celebrating, right? Because he just won them the game. And he's looking at his mom and realizes that his dad isn't sitting there with her. And I think showing his reaction to that with everyone around him celebrating was just so beautiful. That scene always gives me chills. And, you know, after watching the DC animated movie universe, I have a newborn love for this version of Cyborg's dad, because his dad in the DC animated movie universe is just a horrible, horrible father. He's terrible. Like, at least this dad, he seemed like he loved his son. That one straight up hated his son. Cyborg's nightmare vision was also pretty cool. I mean, it wasn't, I didn't think it was that significant considering we were never going to get those extra movies that would have actually showed this. So, and I guarantee you, if Snyder wouldn't have had to step away from the original Justice League movie, this vision probably wouldn't have been in the movie. I think he really just added this in to kind of show what was to come if the universe that he thought out was to continue. And let's not act like I actually agree with his entire story that he had thought out. I listened to someone read out the scripts or at least the idea of the scripts that Snyder had planned. And let's just say I didn't agree with a lot of it. But, you know, it was cool to see that he at least got to have part of his vision be put on the big screen. Once again, just like in the first or the Whedon version of the Justice League movie, everyone's so weak and it's all just, oh, we need Superman this, we need Superman that. Oh, Superman's there. Superman beats Steppenwolf's ass. And it's like, come on, man. Batman literally, he still fights like an old man in this. At one point, he gets tossed around by one singular parademon. Like, this is supposed to be some guy who's seasoned. He's fought all of his rogues gallery a bunch of times. This is warehouse Batman right here, and he's getting tossed around by a parademon. It makes no sense. It's just so dumb, and it's my problem that I've had with Snyder's movies this whole time is that Superman existing in the world just keeps anyone else from being able to be powerful at all, because Superman is the one above all. He's the god. He's the guy that everyone's afraid of because no one can stop him, which isn't true. But it's I just don't like how all the other characters are framed when next to Superman. Black Superman, yeah. You guys remember when that movie was supposed to come out? Black suit Superman looks pretty cool. I like the black suit. And I mean, it was probably just to be edgy. You know, that's probably why Snyder did that. But I think it actually works here because Superman's been dead for a long time. So he uses the black suit to absorb more of the sun, which it fits here. Honestly, a lot of the parts in this movie were just more of what we got in the Whedon cut with, you know, a new filter and better music choices. But, I mean, it's better. And more is not always better, but in this case, it added more action, more context to characters who desperately needed it, like Cyborg and Flash. So I'm willing to give it a pass, at least to a point, because 4 hours is really long, and I never finished this movie in one sitting. I think the one time that I actually did, I was working at my community college. I just sat at a desk and waited for people to ask me for help. So I just put it on while I was like doing my homework. While working, and you know, it was like a 5 to 6 hour shift, so I finished it in one sitting. And you know what's really ironic is that the music choice in this movie, besides that weird part where all the women in like that village where Aquaman was at start singing, the music choice was honestly kind of similar to James Gunn. If it wasn't for this gray filter on the movie, you could have guessed that James Gunn had a part in this movie. Like, especially that one scene with Aquaman as he's walking off of the pier into, like, the ocean after he saves that guy. That scene is, like, directly out of something that James Gunn would do. And in classic Snyder fashion, there are a lot of really nice-looking shots in this movie. It's just so cinematic, which I'm a sucker for, of course. And to this movie's credit, Superman showing up in the final battle doesn't automatically give them the win. They actually still fail. And Barry has to go back in time to fix things, right? So I'll give it credit for that. It is a lot more of a team effort because Barry has to go back in time, and then Cyborg and Superman have to split the boxes up. And then, you know, Batman's there doing nothing as always. Aquaman and Wonder Woman help behead Steppenwolf. So those parts are cool. Snyder Cut is getting beats here, just over Shazam. God, I'm trying to make this last video as short as possible. And I don't know how I turned a 4-hour movie into also a long-ass discussion about it. Whatever. How funny is it that the next movie after Snyder's last DC movie was Gunn's first DC movie? And I'm not even trying to pick sides. I do not care who's at the helm as long as they're making good DC movies. There's this guy in my comment sections of the last two videos going full on Snyderhead without even watching my video, and I just think it's funny. But I'm not trying to pick a side here. I'm not a Gunn head. I'm not a Snyder head. I don't care. I just want a good movie. So I just think it's ironic how that kind of happened. The Suicide Squad is one of the best examples of a great movie doing terribly at the box office. And it's mainly due to COVID, but I think it was also the, I guess you could call it the falling action post Endgame. Basically, Endgame was kind of like the peak of comic book movies for the time, right? And people needed time to recover. And I'm pretty sure this was only like 1 or 2 years after Endgame release. So people were still recovering and they were like, not going to watch it. Especially considering the backlash on the first one. But nonetheless, this movie was really fucking good. First of all, I love the subversion at the start of the movie. Not only does it allow us to get some pretty damn graphic deaths, including Pete Davidson getting his face all the way blown up, but it also actually shows a team that fits the name of the movie, a Suicide Squad. The only issue that I have with this team is that Rick Flag was with them. I'm almost wondering, why was Rick Flag sent with them? Because it seems like Amanda Waller knew that team was going to get ambushed. So why would she allow Flag to go with them? And maybe she didn't know. Maybe this was something that she was surprised by, but she surely didn't show it. And Waller's really fucking slimy, so I wouldn't be surprised if she just didn't care. Especially since these two squads were sent in to delete information that she probably knew Flag would not be happy with. There's some really weird parallels to the 2016 version in this movie. For example, you've got a black marksman who has a complicated relationship with his daughter. He's a big-time actor as well. Kind of weird. Though I do love seeing Idris Elba talk like this. I mean, it's funny as shit just having him yell "fuck you" back and forth with his daughter. That was funny. One issue, though. He's considered an American throughout this whole movie, or at least grouped in with the actual Americans. But bro did not even try to hide his British accent. So I don't know what's going on with that. It's just... I mean, just do an American accent. This Suicide Squad is a lot more interesting than the first one, though. You got John Cena, some dude who throws around polka dots, and a shark. I mean, what more could you ask for? And I'm one of the unfortunate souls that has not seen the Peacemaker TV show, but I love John Cena as Peacemaker. He's great. Every other thing that he says is hilarious to me. Although I won't forgive him for killing Rick Flag. Ever. And as always, Harley Quinn steals the show when she's on screen. I mean, Margot Robbie is just too good as Harley, and here is no different. She's the same Harley as she always is, just without the attachment to Joker, which makes her better. And I should have mentioned this during the first Suicide Squad movie, but Amanda Waller is too good of an example of how heartless the people in power really are. And maybe I live under a rock or something, which I don't know how. I kind of do live under a rock, but I don't really see many critiques of her character as being woke or anything. I wonder why that is. Why is that? Oh yeah, she's black. When black people are the villains, it's all of a sudden not woke, but whatever. Because Starro the Conqueror may be technically the villain, but Waller really does seem like the villain, the actual villain during this movie. And I love the fact that the new people that work for her in this movie somewhat avenged the people that worked for her in the 2016 version. You know, the people that got shot for no fucking reason. Like, they got to bonk her on the head and knock her out, right, with no consequence. So that's cool. Even though she deserves life. She deserves life. 2 lives, actually. 3 lives, actually. And I know I said I would never forgive Peacemaker for killing Rick Flag, but I love that the movie taps completely into the government is shit trope and actually makes some conflict surrounding it. Because in the first movie, when the Suicide Squad realized that their mission was just to save Waller and nothing else, you know, they shame her for it. They say she's a shitbag and that it's kind of messed up that they're not doing anything to stop what's happening to the city. But there's no conflict around it. There's no real discussion on it. And on top of that, the whole plot of that movie, or the reason that movie exists, is because Enchantress breaking free was actually an accident. In this movie, they willingly experimented on people for Project Starfish. So it really does make them shitholes. This is what creates the divide that leads to Peacemaker killing Flag. Because Flag, who's always served his country proudly and thought that he was doing a good thing, realized he was defending a terrible government. And, you know, to an extent, you can understand Peacemaker's side to it. Because if something like that was to be released, you know, there would be some outrage. Though I'm sure the people in power would do a good amount of time, would spend a lot of time to make sure all that quieted down. The movie only has like one main character that doesn't get his story explored at all, and that's King Shark. He's the Hulk of the team, but he doesn't even really act like that. He's really just there for humor. He's the idiot that eats people. Though that one scene where he's messing around with the aquatic animals and just like playing around with them, I thought that was amazing. I really like that scene, even though it's nothing really special. And Starro was cool in this movie, but I never really liked the comic book movies that had some galaxy level threat go up against, you know, heroes that were not qualified for this job at all. Like this movie, the Thunderbolts, and maybe some other movie that I'm not forgetting. I just never really liked that. They never really caught my attention. And maybe Starro's not galaxy level, but I felt he was way out of their pay grade. Though they did manage to do some actual damage to him before Harley delivered the final blow, which, of course, was cool as shit. Like, she literally dives into his eye. Like, that shit is amazing. Suicide Squad is such a great movie. It's fun, epic, and entertaining until the end. And maybe the happy and colorful tone that this movie brings is a little bit too much for some people, but this isn't an objectively bad movie by any means. James Gunn, putting out fire, just as always. I'm going to put the Suicide Squad at A tier, just behind Aquaman. Name a better combination. A black comic book character having the name Black in the title and electric powers. Because this one's got both. And look, I know, technically Black Adam's not black, but Dwayne the Johnson's black. Dwayne the Johnson. Wow, that's crazy. Dwayne the Rock Johnson is black, and then, I mean, Kahndaq is located somewhere in the Middle East. So you could hypothetically say it's right by Egypt, which is in Africa. So technically African. So, you know, so we're just going to roll with it so I don't ruin my joke. I can't think of this movie existing as anything other than the Venom effect. Taking a villain and turning them into a hero that kills, as if that somehow blurs the line between good and bad. The biggest takeaway from this movie is the drama that surrounded it, with The Rock all over the promotion of the next upcoming movies, with saying that the hierarchy was about to change and him trying to force a Black Adam versus Superman movie. It literally got to the point where, you know, everyone and their mama knew that Henry Cavill was gonna be in this movie as Superman. That was the main reason I actually went to go see it in theaters. Like, I was just sitting around like, yo, where's Henry Cavill? Where's Henry Cavill? And I was sitting, and when it ended, I was like, all right, he's showing up in the post-credit scene. And I just can't believe the WB execs were stupid enough to just be like, yep, Henry Cavill's back. How y'all like that? Knowing that they were about to let James Gunn take complete creative control over the DC movies. I swear, some people with all this money, they're just dumb as shit. Like, I'm sorry. I think like a lot of people that just don't have the money to be in leadership roles like that could do a lot better at running some of this shit. Because telling Cavill that he's coming back as Superman right before you give James Gunn the keys is so dumb. Because then it just raises the Snyder cultism to a level that it didn't need to be at. And I mean, I feel bad for Henry Cavill because you're told that you're coming back as Superman. Superman, probably I guess not the number one most popular character like in media, but a top 5, top 3 character for sure. Face of America, all of this. You're coming back as that character. You have to feel great. I mean, he posted on his Instagram just for it to all be taken away when honestly, he should have never been told that he was coming back anyways. They should have waited until after they gave James Gunn the keys to let James Gunn tell him if he was coming back. And it's not only the exec's fault, it's also The Rock's fault for trying to force this movie. Just crazy. I mean, regarding this Black Adam versus Superman movie, it would have been shit. Because think about it. The Rock has that dumbass contract clause where he can't lose a fight. And I know technically that was only a thing in the Fast and the Furious movies, but god damn, he does not lose a fight in this movie either. So who's to say he just wouldn't lose while fighting Superman? Which would have been so stupid to watch because Superman is beating Black Adam to a pulp. All right. So this contract clause, this unspoken contract clause, would have ruined that movie, just like it ruined all of the suspense in this movie. It's kind of unfortunate that the only person from the Justice Society that I actually cared about was Dr. Fate. Like, Atom Smasher and Cyclone just don't do anything during this movie. They're kind of just there. And then Hawkman is just a dumbass. Like, he's unnecessarily mad at Black Adam. Like, he is so mad during this movie. No one else, not even like the rest of the Justice Society, were as mad at Black Adam as Hawkman. Like, he's acting like a hothead throughout the whole movie. And he goes around saying there's only good and bad. Like, what a dumb character. He's so one-dimensional. He's so annoying. Just another black comic book character just written terribly. When are we going to get a well-written black comic book character? When? And he's written to be the opposite to Black Adam, or at least some type of foil. But, I mean, the only really threat that he holds towards Black Adam is that he's going to start fighting him again. Like, that's all he says. He's like, yo, I'm going to fight you. We're going to start fighting right now if you don't stop. And it's like, there's no suspense behind that because, well, Black Adam is not going to lose because it's The Rock. And also, he beat you guys like a bunch of times already. So it's like, why would he be worried if you were going to start fighting him again? He just beat your ass again. This movie is just really underwhelming. And, I mean, there's not a lot of tension in the movie after Black Adam takes on the whole Justice Society, including Dr. Fate, and doesn't lose. Somehow he beats Dr. Fate. Once he does that, you know that there's not going to be anyone that can physically stop him. So the only person stopping him would be himself, which is just lame. Like the only reason he gets depowered is because, you know, he decides to himself. He's like, all right, I'll allow myself to get arrested now. Like, bro, what the fuck? Just for him to come back like 10 to 15 minutes later. Don't even get me started on the villain because I don't even remember his name. Like, he was so boring, and I didn't care about him at all. There was no reason to sympathize with him. Like, he was just a descendant of the king, the original king that Black Adam killed, and it's like, okay, your ancestor was shit. Like, you know, do better. And he turns into this weird devil creature at the end. And it's like, whatever, man. Like, it just takes a weird turn for no reason. He also kills Dr. Fate. And Dr. Fate was one of the most anticipated parts of the movie for me because I like Dr. Fate. And for him to just get dogged like this, I was so mad because Dr. Fate had been seeing Hawkman die in visions before that fight. And I was sitting there like, no fucking way. Like, right before the final fight starts and he blocks out the rest of the Justice Society. Once again, just excluding, what's his name again? I don't even remember their names. Hold on, I wrote them down somewhere. Damn, I wanted to call him Atomic Man for some reason. Atom Smasher and Cyclone. Once again, they just get locked out from being able to do anything in this movie. And he goes on and gets himself killed. And it's just, why? Why do you have to kill Dr. Fate? That's the dumbest shit. Like, I would have been so happy if Hawkman would have died, but you had to go and kill Dr. Fate. How annoying. And of course, somehow The Rock breaks out of his containment, climbs up to the surface of the water and yells Shazam. Comes in, splits the villain in half, and boom, awesomeness. Like, the action obviously was pretty entertaining. Nothing too crazy. I mean, a lot of people like to say that it's on like Man of Steel levels, which I guess I can agree with, but it wasn't too crazy. The movie was still entertaining. It's just not that good of a movie. Black Adam is going to go in C tier, just behind Justice League. Before I even talk about this movie, the best part about it was that when I went to the theaters to see it, this big ass theater that I was in was basically empty. There were like two people up front, and I just sat in the back chilling. It was an amazing experience. I wish I could see more movies where there were barely any people in there. This movie, like a lot of other family-oriented comic book media, like Miss Marvel, does a great job of making the characters feel like a family, and the actors are great actors. At least the dynamic between the kids felt like they were a family. And I think Billy's worry about his whole family splitting up and going their own ways fits right in with his character because he just got over the fact that his mom practically abandoned him. In his own mind, it would be like everyone else abandoning him if they were to split up. But one problem I do have with this is that he still refuses to call his foster mom mom. He calls her Rosa. Contradictions piss me off because if you're so worried about the family splitting up, why would you purposefully disconnect yourself from your foster mom? That's actually stupid. And then at the end, he just starts calling her mom for no reason. There's no character arc there. There's no story that allows him to develop his attachment to her. There's none of that. He just starts calling her mom. Speaking of contradictions, Asher Angel does actually try to be a lot more animated in this movie. But unfortunately, Zachary Levi does as well, which doesn't help the problem from the first movie. Especially when Zachary Levi started using weird-ass slang. Like, why? Why are you using the word fam? Oh, shit. I'm going to have to blur that out. I just doxed myself. Fucking Mary. Why couldn't you just get another face for her superhero version? It makes no sense that she keeps the same face and her parents don't recognize her. Stop being lazy and make your movie make fucking sense. Speaking of laziness, you remember the Wizard? He's now mad because he lazily chose Billy to be the champion, and Billy did something stupid. Oh, maybe you should have chosen a better champion. Like, Billy's just trying to do his best to be a superhero, and, he fucks up. But most of the time, he means well, and you're getting mad at him when you're the one who fucked up. And poor Rachel Ziegler. She never had a chance. The script was horribly written for her character. Like, right after she says that she's 6,000 years old, she kisses Freddy. Like, why? Why would she do that? And then they make the joke that it's a little inappropriate. It's a lot inappropriate. And personally, I just can't take her too serious because she looks like a Disney Channel ass actor. It's just, I can't get the thought of her needing to be on a Disney Channel show out of my brain. I don't know why, but that's just a nitpick. On the topic of the villains, they just don't hit the same as Dr. Sylvania did. The one sister wants to destroy humans because apparently she thinks the humans did something to them. I thought it was the wizard that killed your dad, but I must be mistaken. The other sister just wants to restore her realm, and who knows what Anne wants? She's just there, choosing sides whenever it's convenient to her. Besides Anne, though, none of them are interesting enough for me to even talk about them. They're just there, saying basic-ass lines the whole movie. And the fake-out death at the end of the movie. That is what solidified me as really disliking this movie. It's one of the only moments that I've ever considered walking out of the theater before the movie ended. It's up there with the ending to Quantumania. Because as much as I'm criticizing this movie right now, and there's so many flaws and holes in the plot, I still enjoyed watching it. It was still an enjoying movie. So when, it's clear that Billy's about to die, they set the scene perfectly. The music is playing. It's super depressing. Freddy is running through the dust to try and find Billy. And when he finds Billy, he can't help but yell at him because obviously he's sad that Billy's dead, but he's more angry. He's angry at Billy for sacrificing himself. Like, the actors play this scene so well. But hold on. Don't worry, he's not dead. Wonder Woman comes out of nowhere and revives him. Why? I hate to grade a movie just off of its ending, but I feel like this movie just shat in my face. Enough talk about this movie. Shazam is going in C tier, just ahead of Justice League. Now, I'm going to ignore Ezra Miller's antics outside of the film because they don't affect the film itself. But I feel it's necessary to note he needs to be put under the prison. You know, despite how dumb I think the Flash's running is, I can't help but smile when I see it because when I saw this movie in theaters, I was also with my nephew, and he was like 5 at the time. And when we're in the parking lot after the movie, he turns to me and goes, "Want to see my new run?" So I bite, and he proceeds to go into the dumbass Flash pose and take off down the parking lot. I gotta run to catch up to him. I gotta make sure some car doesn't see this 3'2" child running, right? So, but I love seeing that what he took away from this movie was that he thought the Flash was cool enough to mimic him. Because there's not really any kids in our family that are his age. He's probably like the youngest in my intermediate family. So to see that he's also taking an interest in what I like, it makes me smile. I'm a sucker for Justice League interactions, so I love the opening scene. Was the CGI bad? Yeah. Was the humor forced? Yeah. But I don't care. Justice League. Also, Ben Affleck's Batman looked awesome as hell. Not his suit, but the action. Like the shit he pulled off, like literally basically flying through the air and then gliding onto the truck of the Falcone's kid. That was awesome. And what a way to send off Ben Affleck's Batman, a character that I've never really liked that much, but he spits some incredible facts to Barry about time travel before just driving off into the night. It almost makes me feel bad that was his last appearance. And I love how Barry loses his mind talking to a younger version of himself to the point where he considers beating the shit out of him. That was funny. And most people will rag on the plot of this movie, but it's just a time travel movie. Just because it's overdone doesn't mean it's really dog shit. Plus, it's just a different version of Flashpoint. So, I mean, what's there to complain about? I like Flashpoint, so I don't mind it. Michael Keaton is awesome in this movie, just like he was in his own movies. There's something about seeing this specific Batman in a much more epic environment with a bigger budget that gets me going. Like, I was smiling every time he fought. One question, though. Where did Zod get his army from? Like, were all these folks locked up with him? Because if that was the case, why weren't they there during Man of Steel? And I get you could say the whole time travel shit, you know, change things in the past so they're different in the future, yada, yada, yada. I think they were using that as an excuse to just make some battlefield between two armies. This movie also just shoves a bunch of references in at the end, which was so unnecessary. And you could look at it as a nod to the past before moving on to the new universe, but no, there were way too many. We did not need all that. And seeing all those worlds collide together just seemed like a crazy turn in the plot of the movie. Like, before we were contained into one timeline, one universe, and then out of nowhere, we just see a bunch of different universes around us. Like, that was way too drastic of a turn. The actual ending, with Barry removing the tomatoes from his mom's basket, was really sad. The terrible human being can act, which is unfortunate, but I remember when I first watched this, I almost teared up, honestly, because I'm watching this movie and my mom's right next to me, and I'm thinking of, what if I had to purposely let my mom die? That would be terrible. And, you know, I kind of just put myself in his shoes as the Flash, not as Ezra Miller. Please, I don't want to be Ezra Miller. The movie was all right. It's special in some ways, but it's not great by any means. The Flash is going to get C tier, ahead of Man of Steel. This movie is interesting because, just like Peacemaker, it's canon to the DCEU and the DCU. I guess that's what you get when leadership transfers while Warner Brothers is still trying to make movies. I remember watching the trailer for this movie and thinking, oh, it it looks fun. And that's what this movie is. Fun. So like always, some folks were upset with this movie because it got a little political when this movie really only spoke on like classism, and for some reason people don't want to acknowledge that either. Me personally, I love the blatant caricature of privileged people because I get to laugh at how stupid they look. And that's coming from someone who's privileged. I'm in a polo right now. I work a white collar job. I'm privileged. All right. It's okay. You can laugh at yourself sometimes. It's just too funny how obnoxious they make the rich people in this movie. It's really funny. So I didn't have a problem with that. But one thing that I had a huge problem with in this movie was Jaime and his goddamn degree. This motherfucker is apparently pre-law. So why didn't you go to law school? Plus, pre-law is not actually a degree. All right. Pre-law just means you're taking courses in order to go to law school. You still have just a regular ass bachelor's degree. So why don't you use your bachelor's degree to get a job? And like I know there's like a one-off line where he talks about how no one's hiring right now, but I refuse to believe that he tried hard enough before just taking the job where he's cleaning gum off the bottoms of tables. And we also never learn what his degree actually is. So we can't even say whether or not it's reasonable that he's struggling in the job market, which, let's be real, right now, the job market is dog shit. Like, it's tough out there. But we don't even have any type of reason for why he can't find a job. It's just, oh, he's pre-law this, pre-law that. That's not a degree. It's definitely the most annoying part of this movie. I don't understand how, but always when these movies are oriented around family, they get the best actors to play the roles of the family. Like, I love every single scene with his family in it. They're just so easy to like. And George Lopez is funny as hell. He has been since I was in my bed at like 5 years old, up past 9 p.m., and Nick at Night was playing reruns. The action was incredible in this movie, too. Just insane choreography. And for some reason, the fights in this movie make me think of the older Power Rangers shows, but with like a much bigger budget. Like, I think if someone actually cared to mimic the vibe of the original Power Rangers instead of making Michael Bay Power Rangers, this is what they would get. And this movie also knows how to set the tone at the right time. Give a lot of props to the actors during Jaime's dad's death scene where he has a heart attack, because they're crying their hearts off and Jaime is unable to do anything. He's trapped, and the villain's just dragging him away, and that made me really hate the villain. And a lot of movies don't do that for me. I'll watch the movie, I'll think, oh, the villain's pretty good. Damn, he's kind of evil. But I don't usually hate the villains. I really hated this villain. Speaking of the villain, she's cool. I hate her, but she's cool. I can't remember her name for shit, but, I mean, she's a typical caricature of a rich person, which, like I said already, I love that shit. And she's still basic, really basic. But the over-exaggeration of a rich person just sells it for me. And it allows me to enjoy her performance more. I think the final act did a bit much. Like, I like the scene with Jaime talking to his dad, but the whole weird quantum realm type shit that was happening when he kind of synced with the beetle was a bit much. I think if they had him talk to his dad while trying to, I guess, sync with the beetle in a much more grounded way rather than him floating through the quantum realm, that scene would have hit harder. Also, the dude turning into Doom Guy is just, that shit's crazy. I think that leads me into my last point about this movie. This movie's fun. The action's amazing. The acting is great, but it's really basic. It just follows the formula that was set by the first Iron Man. It's even got the bad guy with the same powers. So I can't praise it as much as I want because it's very basic. This movie doesn't take any risks, but it's still good. Blue Beetle is going in B tier behind Wonder Woman. All right, guys. Last movie. This movie was a little disappointing. I want to start with the villain. Black Manta is actually the main villain of this movie, which is great. But the real villain of this movie is this dumbass demon whose name I did. Basically, Mana finds a trident that contains the soul of this demon, and the demon coerces him and gives him powers, gets him to free him, basically. And it's so dumb because we didn't need this demon to make Manta a good and formidable villain. Also, it convolutes the movie by having one, I guess, lesser villain and then another villain that only comes in at the end, which happens a lot and it's stupid. When Mara got blasted by Black Manta, I thought she was going to die simply because of all the controversies with Amber Heard in real life. So I was pretty surprised that she was just, I guess, resting for a bit. But it was a good way to get her out of the script for a while. There was a lot that was cool with this movie. Like the scene straight out of Return of the Jedi with the Jabba the Hutt looking motherfucker. That was cool. And the action in this movie is still good, like the first one. There's even a few moments where there are some one takes that extend along more than 3 seconds. You still feel every single hit taken by anyone in this movie. And despite the way less serious tone of this movie, it still keeps the charm from the first Aquaman. And I'm going to talk way less about this movie because there's not much to say besides it was a fun movie that is entertaining. But I want to add on to this whole extra villain thing. I guess let me be clear about this demon thing. I'm basically just calling it that. I think it's the soul of the brother of one of Arthur's ancestors, but it's easier to call him a demon. Orm has this weird moment where he grabs the trident and he allows the demon guy to coerce him into betraying Arthur to free him. And it was such an unnecessary piece of tension for a character who had already kind of grown to be loved throughout the movie. Orm didn't need another moment to prove that he was a different man now. He had already gained Arthur's trust. What more did he need? So not only do they throw in an extra villain at the end for no reason, but they also add unnecessary tension that just overwhelms anyone watching the movie. And then the dude gets defeated in like 3 seconds once he's freed. How are you going to waste the main villain you had for this movie and have him get outshined by this villain just for him to only last 3 seconds? Once again, I ask, who writes these scripts? Do they think before writing? Like I said, this movie was fun. It's entertaining, but it's not a well-written script by any means. Aquaman 2 is going to get C tier, just above Suicide Squad. So yeah, that's the DCEU. It was one hell of a ride. And although it's over now, I think the experience was really entertaining. It is a perfect example of a connected universe that never had any clear vision throughout the process. Like, I didn't even talk about a bunch of the canceled movie ideas that took place during this whole drama. There was a whole Batgirl movie that was filmed and recorded that got scrapped for tax purposes. There were ideas for a New Gods movie, a Wonder Twins movie, and all of these just were thrown in the trash at one point. So despite how much I do like some of these movies, I'm glad that this broken universe can finally be put to rest. It's time to see if the DCU can do better and actually do justice to these heroes and this universe. See you guys on July 11th. Thanks for watching.